What's going on, guys? My name's KillerMiller, and today I'm going to bring you guys a video on Valorant Ranked and some of the things that I think can help fix it and a lot of the problems it has, etc. So obviously everybody knows, and this is going to be primarily focused around like the top level, top 1%, Immortal, 3%, whatever the number is. Everybody around that level that's played Ranked kind of knows it's a disaster. It's not fun. There's a lot of skill gaps, a lot of trolls, people throw, all these different problems. So I'm going to kind of address some of these things and a lot of things I think could help the system and a lot of things I think the community can do as a whole to kind of help bring things better. So that's just kind of the things that I want to go over. So the topics are going to be actual system and its issues, like the actual hard numbers like that Riot has. Cascade queuing, which is a new thing they announced. The actual issues that Ranked has, like the biggest problems. Riot's problems, and that's not actually with the system. That's just things that they need to, I think, things that they can do to help them, make the game more fun in a way, more balanced, etc. And then just some closing thoughts. So, jumping right into it, we're going to talk about the actual systems and its problems. So this is going to be about the hard numbers and the way like queuing works, the way rank rating works, the way gains work, all that good stuff. So kind of to begin is just really the amount of players in Immortal. So there are 20,000 players in Immortal. That is a massive number for a top 1%, a top 2%, whatever, like I said, whatever the exact number is. And so I feel like the biggest problem that we have when we think about that is like, this is supposed to be viewed as and seen as a very like competitive level. And with all these players, you're bound to have many that are just not supposed to be there because of the massive number. And the reason that number is a big problem, excluding all of that, is with the way that queuing works. Unless you're around Radiant, and even then, like you can pull people of all different elos. Like if you're at Immortal 3, let's just say like 400 RR, which I think is around rank 1,000, it's not unlikely that you'll pull an Immortal 1 who's just got to that rank and they're fresh out of diamond, you know what I mean? They just haven't been playing for long. That's like the big problem with the number thing. So a lot of the things that I think that they can do to fix this is the biggest thing to do is remove Immortal 1, 2, and 3. So I know this was added back, I think, I don't know how many, maybe it was an episode ago, a few acts ago, I'm not exactly sure when. But I don't think the change made any sense. I think the change of having Immortal as one big rank is a lot better. And I'll explain why, because if you look at the top percent of Radiant, the top 0.1% I think is the number, there's only 500 people and it is capped. It does not matter what rank rating that it starts at, that number will continue to climb up based on how many people get in there. So eventually you'll see it almost be 500-600 RR to actually just be that rank. And so I think that number, there needs to be another rank like that, just like the game League of Legends has, which is another game by Riot, whether it's capped, because Radiant's just top 500. They should add another rank in between Immortal and Radiant that is also capped, and like maybe like 3,000, 2,000, whatever number that they can come up with, and then that's where they should cap it. And maybe even cap Immortal. I think that's a bit of a, I think it's a bit of a debate there. But the big thing is that, because once again, the big problem that you end up having is like these people of all different ranks can pull into these like same games, and it just becomes this massive just disaster of all like different skill levels. Because like in my opinion, I think one of the biggest skill gaps in the game from like rank to rank is actually high diamond to Radiant. I think that is a bigger skill gap than any other like gap in the game, excluding like maybe like iron, because you're just learning how to play. That's a little different. But that being said, it's like if you can literally be at the Radiant level or Radiant level player and get people that are in that diamond skill gap, and that is a massive gap of skill. So I think if you kind of add these caps in there, you can kind of start to see a lot more consistency in your games, and that'll also just help a lot of these other natural problems. So I think that's actually something that they should do, and I think something that's that can help a lot. So another problem I have is I think RR gains are actually too high. You can technically win with a negative win rate. You gain, I think, on average, I don't know the exact numbers, and it's different for everybody, of course. But I think a relatively average RR gain is anywhere from like 20 to like 22. That's like typically normal. But when you lose, it's like 18 to 20. So it's like, even though it's only like a few points of difference, it's like you can still technically win on a negative win rate, which is pretty insane. So, and it's also possible with 20 points gained to rank up in 5 games, 5 wins, of course. And so I think you should have to rank up in like maybe 6 and sometimes even 7 games. So maybe you cap that gain at like 18 and 20. Like, even though those are small numbers, I think it'll help a lot, because a lot of the problems that the system has, especially once again with its current state of 20,000 players being able to hit that rank, is some of those players just put in an insane amount of hours, and they just play so many games where like Sure, they're improving and they're getting better, but the main reason they're climbing is they're just playing a lot. Like, they could literally have a 49, 48, maybe even 47% win rate and still be going up because of the insane amount of games that they're putting in. And I don't think that should be possible. I don't think it should technically be like dead even of win and loss, or gain and loss of RR, excuse me. Or I also don't think it should be like you lose more than you gain also. I don't think that's how it be. Obviously, the way it works is all like MMR based, and it also depends on like where you're actually at on the leaderboard. I get that, but for just a generalized flat level, I do think you gain too much, and I think that needs to be a little bit of adjustments. Another small thing is that streamer mode needs to rework. Like, there's players that know that they don't want to calm. There's players that know people don't like the way they play and that they're toxic. And so they throw on streamer mode so people don't know who they are, so they don't have to talk in the lobby, and then when they get in game, they can just do whatever they want. And that's a huge problem. Streamer mode needs some sort of change to where, like, you can't, you have to be actually streaming, and, like, you have to, something along those lines. I don't actually know what they can do, because people just abuse it because of that. So maybe require a link. I'm not exactly sure what Riot can do, and I don't know the answer to that, but at the end of the day, it does need some adjustments. It's just not, it's not good. It's a bit of a problem, so. Another thing that we could see is some more map disparity. This is a small thing, but I do think it matters, where if I queue 8 games, I should not play the same 2 maps, like, ever. That just shouldn't happen. And at the same time, I also don't have to play one map and then immediately play a new one back to back, and just new maps the whole time. It's okay to play some consistencies here and there, but it's just a little weird that people end up having to play the same one or the exact same maps back to back, and it just kind of creates this, like, I don't know. That's, like I said, it's a lot smaller thing, but it does exist. And then the other thing, and then, like, this is probably the biggest problem, which I'm going to get into later, is auto locking. Like, just locking a duelist instantly, locking, you know, whatever, really instantly. So I'll get into that later, because that's kind of its own, that's a topic on its own. So, all right, so the next thing we're talking about is Cascade Queuing. This is something that they announced a few weeks ago as of today's date, or just as of this upload. And basically what it is whenever you load in, at least now, you can just lock any second. The second you load in, you can click your agent, lock in, it's good to go. The way it's going to work is the person at the top can lock first, and then it goes to the next person. You got about 10, 15 seconds, whatever. That's how it's going to work. So I saw a lot of people thinking that this is terrible. I think this is an amazing idea, and I'll tell you why. It has nothing to do with, like, because, like, all right, how about this? We need to accept the fact that there are going to still be, no matter what happens, there's going to be people that troll. There's going to be people that lock a certain character every single time, no matter what role they're in. That's just how it's going to work. That's just the way that people are, and it just is what it is. However, I can almost guarantee, and I can, like, this has happened to me before, rarely, where 2 people hover the same thing, and then they just talk it out. That's very rare, of course. Most people just lock a duelist, so they'll lock over somebody, whatever. But I've seen that happen before, and that will happen a lot more with Cascade Queuing, because if the person if player 4 or 5 wants to play Jet and player 1 hovers it, why don't they just ask him, hey, do you mind if I play duelist this game? That guy might just be like, yeah, sure, why not? Or he'll say, you know what, no, I actually would rather not. I think I kind of want to play the duelist role this game, whatever. And then at that point, the player that wanted the Jet role, they can either suck it up and accept it, or they can say, you know what, I really want to play duelist, I'm just going to dodge. Or if that person doesn't talk, you can also dodge. There's a lot of options that open up whenever something like this exists. So I think this is really good for the game. I understand it's not League, and that's like why it works a lot better in League, because you queue a position. And so it's definitely going to have some problems. I don't think it's going to be perfect by any means, but I do think it's going to help, because I just think it's a lot better to have this idea exist where it's like you have to just kind of talk and like kind of think about where you're going to play. So that will also, with the whole streamer mode thing here, is that's where I was saying, if you have somebody that's troll and locks something that they shouldn't because they just want to, it's a lot easier to dodge them now, because everybody just kind of locks at the start, like in the current day. So if you have this Cascade Queuing and somebody locks and then they lock a troll pick and they don't talk, I'm just going to dodge. Like, I'm not playing that game. So it's going to help you save some RR in the future. So I actually think it's going to be really good, potentially at least. Obviously, it's going to need some work, but I think it has some good potential. So now we'll talk about the biggest issues with ranked, and this is things that Riot can't particularly control. And it literally is just the players. And this is not your troll Jet that auto-locked and no comp. This is not just somebody who locked a terrible agent that doesn't fit the team comp. This is also you. This is literally all of us. Myself, whoever's watching this, everybody that plays rank, this involves you. because the biggest problem is that everybody thinks, oh, ranked sucks, I hate playing it, people are terrible, so I don't care, and I'm just going to do whatever I want because nobody else cares. And that is the problem. That's where this root begins. And that's just like some examples that exist are like people will literally tilt and stop caring and run it down instantly. Insta-lockers are a problem because they usually don't care about the comp, and they usually whatever. People like arguing. There's literal verbal assaults sometimes in these games. People put their ego way too in front of everything. And like a lot of this stuff is just literally all down to the players. Like, and that comes down to you too. And you can sit here and be saying, oh, I don't ever, yell at people. I don't have too much of an ego, whatever. It's like, okay, but like you'd be surprised how many people think that they're doing stuff right, and then they just complain and like yell at people anyways, or not yell at them per se, but then they just do a lot of these things anyways. Like, you need to understand that even if you don't think you're part of the problem, like, you just still need to try and hold yourself accountable to these things and others as well. And that's the reality. Like, every game that has ever been successful and has a rank system, like, that has had problems, which is every game, has 90% of the time, it's just the players that are the issue. Like, it does not really matter what Riot does. So we as a community all need to hold yourselves accountable and then each other accountable to make sure we're doing this. Because like, it's one of the most frustrating things I ever see is when people complain about something, like people auto locking or people egoing or whatever, and then whenever they're like around their friends or whenever they're in a game with somebody they know and they don't know somebody else, they'll just do it to that person that they don't know, and they think it's funny. It's like, you're part of the problem. You understand that, right? So it's like, this is all a big like, this is just the biggest issue that the ranked has, and it all comes down to us as players. So that's just the biggest thing that I think really needs to be talked about, because many people don't really understand that, and they just think that everybody else is the problem. It's like, let's just take a step back and just chill out. Like, let's look at ourselves too. So one more thing, or another thing that actually Riot has problems with, and this is not as far as the actual system goes, and this has to do with just the game, and this is gonna be the balance. Like, I'm gonna have a video on this myself, or an entirely separate video, excuse me, but it's still something to talk about here. And it's like, if we look at these pick rates, now this is not ranked, this is actually tourney, but it's still like kind of like mimics a lot of what people play. Like, let's just look at these top 3 characters between Jet, Asher, and Sova. They are all significantly better than every other agent in their class, for the most part at least. Initiator is just kind of debatable because the other initiators are at least good characters, but Sova's still by far the best. And like, this is a problem for ranked because, like, especially if you think about this cascade queuing thing, if you queue into a game, let's say you don't like to play smokes, but you got filled, it's like you're trolling if you don't play Astra. Like, you're straight up trolling if you don't play Astra. So it's like, if you're not a smokes player and you have to play that character in that class you don't like, that is just going to be awful for everybody. And so it's like, if you're back in before Astra was brought into the game and kind of broken, or I guess just in general, before she was even released, a lot of people would just fill Omen if they got filled smoke. And that's not that big of a deal because Omen has this kind of like solo style. He can like kind of play aggressively, whatever. And it worked. Like, people still didn't want to play Omen, but at least if you got filled, it's like, whatever, I'll just play this. But like, that's not really how Astra's design and works. So it's like, if you don't play Astra, you're trolling, and that's a problem. And it's the same thing with like, now Duelist isn't really a problem because everybody likes Duelist in rank, but it's still the idea with all of these characters. It's like, with all these bottom percent characters just being completely non-existent to the point where if people want to play them, they're just literally seen as trolling. That is such a big problem. And like, don't even get me started on like the rest of this, but it's like, or like on competitive and stuff like that. But these are just some things that think that like, if Riot needs to do a much better job at balancing their game, and they're trying, it's hard, it really is. But the fact that Jet and Sova and Astra specifically have all been literally significantly better than the rest of the agents in their class for like almost a year now. The Jet's been over a year. That one I never understand. And almost a 90% pick rate, and there's 2 characters that are 0%. One of them is not even on the freaking list, how irrelevant he is. That's just it's insane to me. And like, obviously this is a bigger problem in competitive play, to be honest with you, but it's still a problem in ranked, because if I'm a sentinel player, or sorry, not a sentinel player, that's the only balance role, to be honest with you. If I'm a duelist or a duelist player and I get filled on smokes and I don't want to play Astra, well, sorry, you don't have a choice, because if you're playing Brimstone, you're trolling, and it's like, it's just insane. So obviously, like, I'm kind of exaggerating some of those points, but hopefully you see what I'm saying. So And a lot of this will also come down to some of the business sides of Riot. The reason duelists are so much popular is because it does also help the company. It's the most popular role by far. People like to see duelist content. There's a reason Jet's so popular outside of her being unbelievably broken. She's fun to watch for a lot of people. And that's why the character Neon was released. She's going to be fun and cool and like interesting to watch. It creates a lot of content for them. And that's how they brand themselves and build their business. That's literally how it works. And so this also, you have to look at this from a casual player perspective, and a lot of people don't consider this when they're thinking balance and fixing stuff. Is like casual players are the biggest percent of the player base, so it's not like you have to cater to them more per se, but you have to factor that in. It's like, at least in the game of League, and I won't go too deep in depth to this, some characters are really good and competitive, but awful in solo queue or just casual play or less competitive play, I should say. And they're really hard to balance. So it's like, it's kind of hard for them to find that balance as well. But that is something to think about whenever you are getting, just kind of thinking about the way that this stuff works out. So also not to mention Ares, obviously just got hotfix or nerfed, but it's like, it just doesn't make sense to me. It's like, dude, Riot doesn't want to change these characters because they just released Neon. They got to monitor her. But no, let's make the Ares the best gun in the game and completely change the way the game is played for 2 weeks. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me. But anyways, that's kind of something that I thought this needed to be talked about. So, all right, some closing thoughts are literally just to be better. Like, Riot can help, and there's a lot of things they can do, especially with the first part. But at the end of the day, it does start with you. That's the reality. So, like, try to do your best to not ego people. If somebody talks to you, if somebody says something stupid to you, don't say anything back. Just let it go. Try hard, calm, be a good teammate, and be somebody that's fun to play with. And I promise you, you'll see some more fun games. There's a reason. Like a lot of the players, or not a lot, there's some players that are consistently, it seems like they get good games all the time. And that's because they're always trying, they're always calming, and that kind of helps the environment as a whole. And so it's like, that's just what everybody would do that. We'd literally have no problems at all. So, and lastly, play to win and have a good time. Like at the end of the day, it's ranked. Like, and I just kind of contradicted myself in a way, but like, you do just need to have a good time and just enjoy yourself. So just take it a little easy sometimes and just kind of enjoy yourself and, run with it and have a good time. So that's kind of all I got. So thank you guys for watching. These are the things that I think Riot can do with ranked. And once again, I'll make another video on the game balance at another date. But for now, this is just kind of what I wanted to talk about. So thanks for watching once again. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments if you thought some of the stuff I said was smart or stupid. I'd love to know. And yeah, that's all I got. Y'all have a great day, and thanks for watching.